Hey, greetings all. This is Kyle again with another episode of the My Business Launch Secrets YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing well today. We'll talk a little bit about video editing and the joys of doing that. Which, by joys, I mean sheer pain of having to watch yourself say the same things over and over and over again. But in any case, again, we're on this journey from this guy deciding to try to start an online business and get from $0 to $1 million in a year doing this part-time, as I still have my day job and family and all that fun stuff to take care of. So speaking of the day job, man, I swear it's only Tuesday. It feels like it should already be the weekend because 2 days of nonstop kind of bullshit meetings. And I think the thing that sort of kills me about the job I have now, and even jobs I've had in the past, is just kind of the sheer amount of time that's like wasted doing completely meaningless things. And I sense at least that this is kind of a common problem within a lot of big companies. I work for a big company, and without getting into details of kind of exactly what I'm working on, because I don't really want to dig into that too much, but you run into these situations a lot of times, again, with big entities that frankly, I think they are, they're more incentivized to, they sell big contracts to whoever, to another business or to some public organization, government customer, whoever, whatever the case is, sell these big contracts that say they're going to do all these great things, right? And then what happens? Then they get awarded some contract to do some work for that customer, and then it's like, oh shit, like I guess we actually have to start doing stuff now. And so, obviously, some percentage of what the amount of money they requested is obviously going to be needed to buy parts or buy physical goods in general. And there's some material costs that are usually assigned to that if you're working on a product as opposed to purely a service-based contract. But you're going to have some costs associated with those material costs, and so those are fixed costs, and those things will get purchased at some point along the way, and so that's fine. And then some part of your costs are to actually pay the people that are really doing the work, whether it's paying engineers to come up with the designs for the product, or paying the people who are actually testing that product, or whatever else. But then there's still yet another, what I found, obscenely large portion of the costs that go into just kind of really bullshit types of roles, and kind of more advisors, consultants, reviewers of what you're doing, and people just like to sit around and kind of talk about a problem and poke at the things that they view in their mind are not being correctly done by the people who are actually building the thing or designing the thing that's being worked on. And unfortunately, that's kind of just the role I'm in my current career. So I'm kind of here by choice, I guess, to a certain degree, so I can't complain too much. And again, I don't complain at all about my specific company that I work for. It's a good company to be with, and they do compensate me very well. But, oh man, just sitting through some of these meetings where it's just like, you sit there asking yourself, like, what? You start tallying up like all the money that's being spent just to support the, however many 20, 30, 40 people in this room in some meeting, all day meetings, some of which have traveled to certain destinations, and so paid all these travel expenses. You add all this up, it's just like ungodly amounts of money that is being forked out to basically accomplish nothing at the end of the day, is the bottom line. And that's just some of the bullshit I have to deal with in my day-to-day job. So again, more motivation for me to be successful in what I'm doing here with this online business thing. Even though it is, again, still it's challenging. It's very challenging. just because the sheer time involved in getting all this off the ground is a lot. And again, I'm not really in a position that I can go out and hire a bunch of people to kind of help me with some of the nitty gritty details. Although with what I went through today, I'm seriously reconsidering that position. Maybe have to fork out a little bit more cash to get this business rolling, just so I can get some support, because I certainly am concerned that things are going to kind of drag on like way too slowly. Definitely for me to meet this $1 million in a year goal, but I mean, even getting to some fraction of that, I think it could still be challenging if I'm really going to rely on myself getting this done entirely. That being said, I have done other crazy things by myself, such as buying a 4-unit, small little, don't want to call it apartment complex, but I mean just small residential building, and finding that most contractors, and at least where I'm at, sort of suck and either want to charge outrageous prices for what they were doing, or just didn't even show up or didn't answer phone calls. And I didn't want to sit around waiting for that to get worked out, so I just decided I'm just going to do it. And ended up not like major renovations, but pretty significant renovations on all 4 units that I mostly just did by myself, because I, again, either didn't have the massive amounts of cash needed to pay a more premium contractor to get the work done, and wasn't willing to just sit around and wait for a more reasonable priced option to come along, all the while I'm paying the mortgage on this thing and all that sort of stuff. So, it's not to say that I don't have experience of putting in the work. And again, on that gig, it was still working the day job, so I would just basically wrap up my work for the day, drive over there, sometimes work until very late in the evening, get home at midnight or 1 o'clock, haven't seen my family all day really, my kids are already in bed, and get up and do that again for 5 days, and then on the weekends try to spend a little bit more time with the kids, but still ultimately spending a lot of time out there. And again, fortunately, I'm very, very fortunate to have a very gracious wife that understood the reasoning why I was doing that, and it certainly has paid off for us in terms of a very good financial investment for our family. But it's certainly not something I am looking to do repeatedly every year or anything, and my wife wouldn't really want me to do that either. So, but that's kind of where I feel I'm back at, with the difference being, of course, I'm not doing manual labor in this whole online business thing, but it's just a lot of doing that has to get done, from launching a podcast. So I got to come up with what I want to talk about on these various episodes, and sketching out those, recording those, then going through to doing the editing. And so this is kind of what I was working on today, was even just editing a single episode. The first episode, which I just ended up recording last night, and it was about 30-minute long, recording. Again, I recorded on 2 different cameras, so I can, have some visual interest, splitting between the 2 different camera angles for the YouTube upload. But even kind of just going through that, and number one, just learning within DaVinci Resolve, which is the tool I'm using. It's just some basic editing things. How do you sort of split the clips and delete certain sections that you want to take out, and do that for and then sync up both of the camera angles so that they're in sync with the timing of them, and all that fun stuff. Which, I mean, once you learn that, it's easy. These are easy things to do. But then it's just then you got to sit through and listen to the whole thing, because you want to get in there and kind of edit out little big, if you have big gaps. At least I want to. I guess you don't have to do this, but I want to kind of try to edit out big gaps, or big kind of moments that I'm still trying to improve on my speech in terms of trying to get out some of those crutch words, but for now I can have the power of a video editor to remove those sorts of things, and then piecing together the intro and the outro that I already had recorded previously. Did that a few days ago, so figured out how to bring those into the mix. Thinking about audio editing, setting, what's the right levels for my vocals, and what are kind of some of the basic effects most people apply to their vocals, and all these sorts of things. But yeah, really it's kind of the video editing part, I sat here and, I don't know, it probably took me an hour, a couple hours, listening through the whole 30 minutes after I had aligned the two clips, and just listening through and just clipping, again, the various pieces along the way of those areas that I just wanted to delete. But then now I need to go through it again, and now that I got the two different camera angles, then start to decide, like, okay, when do I want to shift from this camera angle to that camera angle? And of course, then there's multiple other effects you can do within the tools, of like kind of having a dynamic zoom on one camera angle, which again, just to provide some sort of visual interest to your videos, I think is important. Again, not that I'm going for something that's highly produced here, but again, I figure if I want to be uploading it to YouTube, I might as well put in a little extra effort to at least give it a fighting chance to start to generate some interest through that channel, in addition to having the podcast. So I'm doing all that, and so now I've got, you could say, a more or less cohesive audio clip. So maybe the next thing I could do is just strip that audio track out of my video editor, which I don't exactly know how to do that yet, but do that and dump that into a separate audio editing tool, because then I need to bring in, I have a different recorded audio intro and outro, just because, again, the way I've seen people do it, the podcast medium is a little bit different than what you want to kind of optimize for a video clip. So I want to have a different intro and outro for that. So I need to bring in those pieces into my audio editor, which is Audacity, and then render that down, and then so that'll be the actual audio track to upload to the podcast host, or whatever it's called, so that I can officially launch the podcast. Although I don't think I even want to launch the podcast until I probably have like 3 or 4 episodes like fully done, just so I can just start to schedule. I think maybe just 2 a week is probably what's going to be feasible for me, even though I prefer to have more than that, but I don't think it's reasonable. So let's just say I'm going to start for 2 a week. So if I get 4 episodes like fully done, and then I just schedule them to start to push out whatever every Monday and Thursday, or Tuesday, Thursday, or I'll have to figure out maybe what's an optimal posting schedule that people recommend, and pick the days to do that. Schedule those 4, and so that means now I have 2 weeks of kind of a buffer that, of course, I can now start recording new episodes, doing the editing for those episodes. Hopefully keep doing that at 2 per week, so I'm always have a 2-week buffer. But of course, inevitably, I'm going to run into circumstances where maybe I can only do 1 a week, and so I at least have a little bit of some working time that would not affect a regular posting schedule. Which, again, with a lot of these things, what I hear routinely and listening to all these gurus and whatever is like, you need to be consistent in what you're going to do. Like, once you're going to decide to do something, it frankly doesn't matter how good it is. It's just, you need to be consistent in what you're doing. And again, eventually you will improve the craft over time once you've done enough times. But again, if you haven't been consistent, then this does not help you in all the kind of algorithms, organic ratings, and these sorts of things. Like, I guess the algorithms are all looking for who are the people that are actually basically taking this seriously, because they're actually uploading regularly, and those are the podcasts or the YouTube things that are probably going to get sort of pushed further up to the recommendations that all the platforms try to get in front of other people. So again, I want to do it justice. I mean, of course, with all this, I mean, I could spend another 6 months just learning all the details of exactly how you should do YouTube optimization and how you should optimize your podcast for this, that, or whatever. But again, I just figure I just need to get started, and if there's things I learn along the ways of people recommending doing this or that with the podcast or with the video clips, then sure, I'll just adjust course as needed. Oh, excuse me. I mean, one little clip I heard in one of the Marketing Secrets podcast episodes I listened to today, which was actually by some of Russell Brunson's Inner Circle members. They were kind of giving some of their secrets, I guess, of things they've learned, and one of them specifically talked about their podcast that they launched and a couple of things they learned and try to integrate with what they're doing is, I mean, one, they were kind of saying when they launched their podcast, they used the first 3 or 4 episodes as sort of their overall, the webinar pitch, but just broken down into multiple episodes to sort of set the stage more or less for, what their business is about. And I mean, ultimately what the podcast is about as well. That one, I don't think it's as applicable to me because that was coming from a person who already had like a very established business, and they were going to be moving into podcasting as like an additional medium or traffic source to drive more traffic to their business. So it would be very easy for them to do that type of thing. But again, since I'm starting from scratch, plus my business model is very different, so I don't think that's as applicable to me. But at least maybe it does give me an idea for future episodes of talking about this PhD boss framework that I am using as sort of the foundation, you could say, for everything I'm doing within the PhD boss universe, company, whatever. The other piece of advice, though, which I think was interesting, and I'll have to think about trying to integrate this into future podcast episodes I did, but they talked about always giving people like 3 specific actions for them to take at the end of every one of your podcast episodes, so that it's not just, again, you dumping your podcast is not just you dumping a bunch of information on people, but it's like, hey, here's the information, by the way, stories are important to this whole thing also. So here's some information, maybe weave in some stories along the way, but then at the end, just wrap it up, be like, look, this is what I talked about, but what you need to do based on this information is X, Y, and Z. Go do this now. It'll help you in your career, whatever the thing is. And I thought that was kind of a good suggestion. And then they talked about having a call to action in terms of, pushing them again to your funnel, which that is basically what I've already baked into the outros that I've recorded. That will kind of just be universal across all the episodes. So I've already got that piece done, but the kind of 3 specific actions, I don't know if I want to do 3 because 3 is a lot. So maybe if I just come up with one here's one concrete action based on this information I've shared that, you should take for your own benefit. Again, this is not come to me to buy something from me. This is just for you, an action you should take in your own life sort of thing. So I thought that was a good suggestion. Oh God. So anyway, with that, I think I'm going to call it a day and head to bed. So hope you're all doing well. Keep on kicking ass, taking names, and I'll see you next time. Peace.